From the Opopco Studios in Oklahoma City, I'm Jenny Carlson, and this is an OSU update. Tyreek Hill, the Oklahoma State running back and kick returner, has been arrested on domestic abuse by strangulation charges. Kyle Fredrickson joins us on the phone. And Kyle, he has not formally been charged by the DA, but what do we know about what transpired?
Yes, so basically everything we know right now is based off of a media release from the Stillwater Police Department. And sometime late Thursday, about 9:45 p.m., the Stillwater Police responded to Stillwater Medical Center, where a victim, 20 years old, who is yet to be identified, reported that she and Tyreek Hill, her boyfriend, were arguing. When it escalated, the victim reported that Hill actually struck her in the face and the stomach and choked her during the assault. And when that victim went to Stillwater Medical Center, those injuries were consistent with her statements that she had given police once they had arrived. It's a situation, like you said, Hill is yet to be charged with anything. At this point, he was arrested on a complaint of domestic abuse by strangulation. And according to the Stillwater Police Department, that's a felony punishable by 1 to 3 years in prison and or a $3,000 fine. So plenty to be figured out as far as the legal process is concerned moving forward. This is basically just the first notification that Hill has been arrested, but it certainly does not bode well for the future of Hill, not only legally in this situation, but also with the OSU football team, as the Cowboys have yet to really even been released for their short Christmas break before the bowl game.
Well, Kyle, you bring up his future, and obviously we're less than a week removed from the Bedlam game, where his punt return heroics basically won that game for Oklahoma State. He ties the game at the end of regulation with a 92-yard punt return, goes to overtime, and they win on a Ben Grogan field goal. Obviously, his part in that game is etched in Bedlam lore, and now this arrest. Mike Gundy, to this point, we haven't had any feedback from the Oklahoma State football program, but what has Mike Gundy said before as it relates to issues involving domestic abuse?
Right, and it's obviously this has been a hot button issue across the sport of football, dating back to the Ray Rice saga and as well with the Joe Mixon case. So this really couldn't have come at a worse time, I think, in the landscape of how domestic abuse has kind of been brought to the forefront of social issues with all these recent happenings in football. So while all this was happening, Mike had been asked during press conferences about things that he had done to keep his guys out of those situations and to educate them. He had told the media in a number of press conferences that he would bring in lawyers and professionals and people who could really speak to the heart of the issue rather than just handing out kind of the handbook, kind of the standard rules of what's going to happen if any of these players get into similar situations. So there was no doubt the Cowboys were well aware of these situations and the ramifications of what would happen if they were to get arrested on a charge like this. It definitely makes the situation even that much more of a head scratcher. In this case, clearly this wasn't an issue where Hill was unaware of some of the ramifications of his decisions. Another really interesting kind of aside in this situation, another player on the Cowboys roster who has a history with domestic assault, Josh Furman, while he was never actually charged with a crime in Michigan, a big reason why he did not play for the Wolverines is because he was suspended on a domestic assault complaint. I talked with Glenn Spencer about a month back for a story on Furman. He told me it was very important for the coaching staff to hear both sides of the story, to really dig in and find out exactly what had happened, because if that story didn't check out, Josh Furman probably would not be a Cowboy today. So you figure this is going to be a case that the coaching staff is going to take extremely seriously. They're going to want to get all sides of the story. Because in today's landscape, like I had mentioned, if it turns out that Hill is at fault and that these charges are legit, I would not expect Hill to be playing in the bowl game, and I think there are some serious questions about his long-term future with the Cowboys with 1 year of eligibility remaining in his OSU career.
Well, Kyle, you mentioned the Ray Rice situation in the NFL, and I think some people maybe in years gone by, if this situation would have happened, and let's say that the coaches do determine that this was legit, they suspend long-term or kick Tyreek Hill off the team, some people might say, well, he can just go to the NFL, which he does. He is at a point in his eligibility that he could go, but the NFL is likely to frown on this every bit as much as Oklahoma State potentially could if that situation plays out. He might not have a lot of good options once this all shakes out.
You're right. No matter how talented a guy is, I think it's pretty clear with how the Ravens handled the Ray Rice situation that there's a no tolerance policy for situations like this. So let's say Hill is removed from the team and then goes for an NFL future. I think the likelihood of him being drafted would be extremely low. It would be a bad PR move for any organization that's gonna want to sign Hill on. With time, I think a lot of these things do get healed, and there's so much more that has to take place before Hill is actually charged. So It's a little bit early to be talking about it. But, for a team to take a chance on a guy with that on his record, with everything that's been going on lately, I think it's very unlikely. But, with a few years or maybe even months or however long the process needs to take for people to maybe hear his side and understand what happened, then maybe he can get his chance as a free agent or someone who gets invited to a mini camp. But certainly at this point, his football future is in jeopardy for whatever happened on that December 11th night.
Yeah, we don't want to find him guilty or innocent here on this video just an hour or so upon learning of his arrest. But you've got to play these things out because, Kyle, lastly, the importance of Hill is widely known to the Cowboys for this season, and as you look ahead to next season, if he were available at the running back position, the spot where we've seen him most in the offense, that's a spot where Des Roland graduates. They only have Rennie Childs as a known commodity returning. He would be playing a fairly significant role for this team moving ahead.
Oh, absolutely, and we've talked about it on these videos, and we've written about it plenty about Hill maybe not finding his niche in the offense yet, but really showing that big playability and the ability to spark a game-changing play with some of the things he's done in the return game. And you touched on it earlier, but what a difference just a few days can make, in a situation like this where Hill is the Bedlam hero one day, completely turning the tide of the biggest game in the state for these OSU fans who clearly at this point had adored him and everything that he had meant in that victory and even in the season, to going to a guy who's facing some very serious allegations. And once we're able to get our hands on a police report, it's likely we'll learn more about exactly what took place in that residence. And if more details emerge that show the aggression of Tyreek Hill and everything, the country has come to kind of detest in these domestic abuse situations, it almost puts a stain on that Bedlam performance, I think, and it'll be interesting to see how people will look back to that game, if the situation plays out like these early reports are indicating.
All right, we'll continue to follow this story. You can stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.